Welcome to night chemistry. Take a slow, calming breath. Close your eyes. And let the hush of science drift around you like candle glow in a midnight laboratory. Tonight, the quiet corridors of Enlightenment-era Paris open just for you. Glass bell jars shimmer in the lamplight. Quills pause above parchment. And distant church bells soften into the murmur of measured breaths. Together we'll follow Antoine Lavoisier, the father of modern chemistry, through gentle experiments, weightless gases, and the discovery that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. Along the way, the soft tick of a balance beam and the slow flicker of a flame will guide you deeper into rest. Feel each inhale lighten, each exhale lengthen, as knowledge settles into a lullaby and the elements hum an old, familiar tune. Settle in, breathe easy, and let the calm of night chemistry carry you away. Our journey begins now. Prologue. Midnight in the Royal Arsenal. A single brass key turns in an iron lock. Its quiet click echoes down a long vaulted corridor, then dissolves into the hush of Paris after midnight. Beyond tall windows, the Seine glimmers like liquid pewter. The moon brushes faint silver onto rooftops of the Royal Arsenal. Inside, shadows rest among crates of saltpetre and copper stills. But in one corner laboratory a candle yet burns, its flame small, steady, determined. Glass bell jars line the bench like translucent domes of sleeping cities. A polished balance waits, arms poised, as though preparing to weigh a dream. Step closer, softly, and feel the warmth of wax and parchment. Ink dries on a half-written title. Sur la respiration and la combustion. A quill lies where it fell, its tip still dark with thoughts paused mid-sentence. Nearby, a thin ribbon of mercury glows under the glass, calm as a mirror pool at nightfall. Breathe in slowly. Notice the scent. Faint charcoal, trace of warm metal, a whisper of damp parchment. Breathe out even slower. Let shoulders loosen, as if the air itself were gently unfastening the knots of daylight. Across the bench, tiny glass globes cradle invisible guests, gases captured earlier in the evening. They look weightless, yet each is carefully sealed, numbered, and loved for the secrets it holds. One orb contains the vital air Joseph Priestley sent from across the sea. Another shelters fixed air, silent but heavy with untold truths. Their quiet presence feels almost musical, as though every sphere vibrates with a note too soft for waking ears. Near the back wall stands a tall jar inverted over a pool of mercury. A simple device, yet tonight it resembles a lantern holding an undiscovered constellation. Above its shining surface hangs a scrap of hand-cut paper. Rain's purred, rain cree. Nothing is lost, nothing is created, only transformed. The thought drifts through the room like a moth around the flame, casting small circles of wonder on every shelf. Outside the window, Notre Dame's bell marks the hour. One slow tone, then silence. Inside, time seems to slow with it. Dust motes pause mid-air. The balance beam stills. Quill feathers relax. Even the candle flame bows for a moment, as though paying respect to the night. Imagine standing in that hush beside Antoine Lavoisier himself. Though he has slipped away to snatch a minute's rest, his presence lingers in every measured vial, every neat equation. Feel how the room seems to breathe. A gentle inhale as cold night air slips under the door. A soft exhale as warm science drifts upward to the rafters. Let your own breath follow that rhythm. In a few hours, dawn will stir the city. Carts will rattle on cobblestones. Clerks will tally gunpowder stocks. Scientists will debate phlogiston and flame. But not yet. For these few precious minutes, the laboratory belongs to silence, and to you. So lay your day's concerns upon the marble bench, beside the waiting weights and quill. Close your eyes if you wish, or simply soften your gaze until glass, brass, and candlelight blur into one calm glow. Feel curiosity settling like a warm cloak across your shoulders. No questions to solve, only the quiet joy of knowing that discovery is near. Let the steady pulse of the candle guide your thoughts lower and slower, until mind and balance beam rest at the same gentle still point. Here begins our night journey with Antoine Lavoisier, through measured breaths, quiet flames, and the law that promises all things endure in new forms. Breathe in, transformation. Breathe out, release. Rest and listen. The story is ready to unfold. Origins. Scholar of Light and Law. Paris, 1743. On a frosty August morning. In that era the calendar still lingered in July's reckoning. Antoine-Laurent Lavoisier enters the world beneath a high stone ceiling on the Rue du Boulois. He is wrapped in linen, lulled by chiming church bells and the clip-clop of market carts beyond the window. His mother, Emily, kisses his forehead, whispering a blessing she herself will not live to repeat. Consumption waits quietly in her lungs. For now, all is gentle candlelight and the soft scent of almond oil rubbed into wooden cradle posts. Years drift like light dust motes through the tall apartments of the bourgeois Lavoisier family. Antoine grows among ledgers, law manuals, and cabinets of mineral curiosities. His father collects after court sessions. When the boy is 9, a tutor hands him a small burning lens, glass no larger than a silver coin. Antoine tilts it toward sunlight streaming through lace curtains. A point of brilliance finds the dark stem of a feather quill and, with a faint hiss, turns it to sweet-smelling smoke. His eyes widen not at the flame, but at the idea that light might be guided, focused, weighed in its effects the way gold is weighed on a balance beam. At College Mazarine, the finest Paris offers. He sits beneath vaulted ceilings painted with stars. Professors drone about Aristotle. Antoine listens, respectful, yet his quill scribbles margins full of questions. Could air have weight? Does fire eat something from wood? Why do metals gain mass when heated? He sketches retorts, balances, sealed vessels, all imaginary. For the college laboratory admits senior scholars only. After lectures he wanders courtyards where evening lamps flicker to life. Parisian streets remain dim. Oil lamps sputter, their wicks untrimmed, their glass smudged. Antoine notes how shadows pool in doorways, how women lift hems to avoid muddy ruts they cannot see. A plan forms. Brighten the city. At 17 he submits an essay to the Academy of Sciences proposing an improved street lighting system. Mirrored lanterns, elevated posts, schedules for cleaning glass. The judges award him a gold medal. It is small, heavy, perfectly round, like the sun he hopes to tame. That evening he pockets the medal, returns to his dormitory, and studies how the lamplight glints off its rim, already weighing possibilities. Then the quiet grief. Emily slips away to illness when Antoine is but a second-year student. Inheritance money that once secured law careers now lies in trust. His father advises stability. Become an avocat, argue tariffs, secure reputation. Antoine nods politely, finishes legal studies, but each evening sneaks back to the physics lecture hall where bottles of colored salts line the walls like tiny stained glass windows. He inhales their mineral odor, finds comfort in the cool bite of stone floors, listens to glass clink as janitors tidy benches for dawn classes. In those hushed hours he feels his path tilt quietly from parchment to platinum crucibles. Spring 1764. The Seine swells with snowmelt. Boatmen shout. Nightingales trill in Tuileries gardens. Antoine, 21, defends a thesis on the chemical composition of gypsum. He does so with calm precision, voice low, as though explaining a lullaby. Faculty nod. Applause is soft but genuine. Outside, petals drift from blossoming chestnuts, and he pockets a handful, already imagining them calcined to ash, weighed, dissolved in acids, their hidden minerals coaxed into crystals. By 1768, the Academy invites him to assist with a nationwide geological survey. He rides in a rattling carriage over cobbled roads, notebooks open on his knees, measuring angles of sun-bleached cliffs, tasting spring water for iron. Evenings he sleeps in roadside inns where hearth fires crackle. He places rock chips on glowing coals, noting colors of sparks before drifting into dream. In one such twilight he writes, "The earth is a patient book, its pages thick as mountains, its letters tiny crystals." He does not yet know that he will rewrite the alphabet of those crystals, but the idea vibrates faintly, like distant thunder felt through floorboards long before it is heard. Autumn returns him to Paris with satchels of specimens and a reputation for tireless exactitude. Colleagues whisper that his notebook margins record barometric pressure, moon phase, and even heartbeat before each experiment, details others deem needless. Antoine smiles shyly. Precision to him is simply courtesy toward truth. One final hinge must turn: financing. Science costs coin, glass, mercury, rare ores, time free from courtrooms. So he purchases a share in the Firme Générale, the private tax consortium. Its income will buy balances finer than any in France. Its infamy will one day shadow him. For now, the contract ink is barely dry when he leases rooms in the Royal Arsenal, begins ordering retorts, silver crucibles, airtight flasks. At night he lingers in those empty chambers, listening to droplets echo inside copper stills, echoes that sound to him like distant applause from future centuries. Pause here, dear listener. Picture young Lavoisier, hand resting on polished oak, candle halo crowning mineral samples with soft gold. Feel his quiet resolve drift outward, like warm air rising from a crucible. Let that resolve settle over you. Steady, unhurried, promising discovery but demanding no haste. Breathe in the faint scent of chalk, dust and lilac. Breathe out the hushed rattle of carriage wheels fading down a moonlit street. Our scholar of light and law stands at the threshold of something vast. Combustion, respiration, the very breath you now draw. But tonight there is stillness before the spark. Rest in that stillness a moment longer, and when next we meet, the first timid flames of modern chemistry will begin to speak. Gilded duty and secret experiments. Daylight slips across polished parquet in the Hotel de Firmes, and with it flows the faint ring of Louis d'Or dropping into ledgers. Here on the second floor, young Antoine-Laurent Lavoisier records the wealth of a kingdom. Wine taxes, salt levies, tolls on every barrel that rattles through the city gates. Quills scratch, sealing wax cools, and clerks murmur sums like slow incantations. Their rhythm is hypnotic. 4,500, breathe in. 7,003, breathe out. Listen closely. Each column of numbers settles upon his conscience like a feather, light at first, yet destined to gather weight. He has joined the Firme Générale, that glittering yet unloved consortium which buys the right to collect France's taxes for a fixed fee, keeping the excess. Critics will one day call them parasites. For now, they call them indispensable. And Antoine, precise as ever, tells himself, precision is virtue, even in finance. With virtue, science may flourish. Coin for crucibles. That is the bargain. By nightfall, those same golden discs migrate, quietly, from counting house drawer to laboratory invoice. Walk with him after dusk. Feel cobblestones underfoot. Hear the clip-clop of a rented carriage carrying retorts wrapped in straw. A lantern swings from its roof, dotting walls with crescents of light. Inside the carriage rests a crate marked Poudres and Salpeter du Roi, the Royal Gunpowder and Saltpetre Administration, another share he has purchased, for nitrates are the soul of both powder and experiment. Even in the wayward dance of shadows you can smell it. Sharp saltpetre, earthy charcoal, a hint of sulfur, notes that will later perfume the birth of oxygen. The carriage halts at the Royal Arsenal gates. Keys jingle, locks turn. Step into his private chamber. Oak benches newly planed, brass balances still gleaming from Block Zero's candlelight. Yet something has changed. On the far wall stands a new furnace, its bricks amber with fresh mortar, iron door whispering heat. Above it hangs a polished copper plaque engraved with a single word: observation. Watch him set down the coins, soft clink, beside crimson crucibles. One breath, too. The day's arithmetic releases, like dust shaken from a cloak. He loosens neckcloth, rolls linen sleeves, and draws a flask of pale blue vitriolic spirit, sulfuric acid, cool as moonlight, potent as prophecy. A fragment of phosphorus waits, ivory and eager, upon a dish no larger than a child's palm. Banker by daylight, alchemist of truth by night. But the alchemist is not alone for long. Enter Marie-Anne Pierrette Pauls. Close your eyes a moment and picture a winter salon, its fireplace sighing embers, its ceiling molded with plaster roses. A diplomat's reception is underway. Ribbons shuffle, fans flutter, voices murmur in rococo melody. Across the room stands a 13-year-old girl in dove-gray silk, observing everything with an artist's steady gaze. She is the daughter of Jacques Pauls, himself a director of the firm Générale, who fears an arranged marriage to a man thrice her age. So he proposes instead a scholarly union. Marie-Anne meet Monsieur Lavoisier. Antoine bows, sees curiosity, not fear in her eyes, and somewhere deep inside hears the soft strike of flint against steel. Months later, in spring of 1771, church bells chime. Rose petals drift onto lit cobbles. The marriage contract is signed. Do not imagine romance of thunderbolts and violins. Imagine instead two intellects leaning toward the same flame. She will learn English to translate Priestley's papers, Italian to compare Spallanzani's, engraving to immortalize glassware, and patience to time each drop that falls from his barometer. He, in turn, will learn the color of inquiry painted in her sketches, the tempo of laughter that slips between Mercury readings, the grace of a mind unrestricted by society's corset. Back once more in the Arsenal chamber. Night deepens. The newlyweds set a ledger beside a journal, commerce beside curiosity. Hear the whisper as Marie-Anne's graphite traces a diagram. A copper still here, a water bath there. Arrows feathered with meticulous shading. Antoine lifts brass weights. Dust motes swirling like tiny galaxies around each mirrored disk. They do not speak. Their silence is a duet, the hush that heralds discovery. Tick, the pocket watch on the bench. Drip, viscous acid into a glass retort. Breathe in. Crisp night air scented with lilac drifting from the courtyard. Breathe out, warm laboratory hush carrying crackle of charcoal. Coins purchased this moment. Now the moment transmutes coins into data. He calcines lead oxide, recording its mass before and after exposure to flame. The oxide grows heavier, not lighter. He notes this in ink. No triumph, only calm wonder. Wonder that will soon sharpen into the thought. Something invisible has joined the metal. Across the bench, Marie-Anne lifts a lens to the retort, sketches the faint glow kissing crimson powder. The hour grows late, still they work. A silver crucible yaws open to accept tin, then snaps closed like a sleepy oyster. Antoine adjusts the furnace draft. Blue fire sighs. Listen, soft hiss of molten alloy meeting cooler surface, like a lullaby sung by the elements themselves. Outside, the Seine reflects lanterns in shimmering gold chains. Carriages thin, watchmen call oaths to the darkness. Church clocks trade whispers across rooftops. Inside, the experimental log swells. Densities of mercury in different seasons. Ash remaining after candle wicks expire inside sealed jars. Volume of fixed air, absorbed by caustic alkali. Each measurement is a bead on a string the world has not yet seen taking shape. The law of conservation of mass. For a breath, rest your eyes on the quiet duality of his life. Parchment invoices stamped with royal fleur-de-lis. Glass flasks scrawled with tiny numbers no courtier could interpret. Feel how daytime's clamor muffles into nighttime's calm, like trumpets replaced by violins. Sense the gentle tension. a golden cage supporting wings determined to fly beyond its bars. A logbook closes with a soft thud. Inkpot lids twist shut. Embers fold inward, glowing like sleepy rubies. Antoine removes waistcoat, drapes it over the chair. Marianne gathers sketches, her fingertips smudged with graphite stars. They pause in the doorway, lantern held high, to watch a final coal wink into charcoal black. Close your own eyes now. Imagine the laboratory steeped in darkness yet pulsing with latent flame, the echo of today's readings awaiting tomorrow's revelation. Hear the distant toll of midnight, one tone then two, each reverberation a reminder that time itself joins every experiment, weighing seconds alongside grams. Inhale, faint memory of sulfur and ink. Exhale, soft approval of the night, cradling curiosities until dawn. When next we open the door, a rumor called phlogiston will face its reckoning, and the breath you draw at this very moment will find its name: oxygen. But for now, allow numbers and nightfall to balance one another deep within your chest. Let eyelids rest as gently as coins upon felt. Let heartbeats settle into the ticking watch upon the bench. Nothing is lost, nothing created, only transformed. Your waking thoughts melt like lead in the crucible, reforming as quieter dreams. Trust the silence to guard them until morning. Stay with the hush. Drift with the glow. Block 3 awaits just beyond the ember's edge. Banishing phlogiston, the breath of oxygen. A hush blankets the Arsenal laboratory. Outside, February 1772 exhales a faint, icy fog. Inside, a low furnace glows the color of banked sunrise. Upon its iron grate rests a porcelain dish dotted with scarlet powder. Mercury calx, a substance alchemists insist is mercury robbed of fiery phlogiston. Antoine-Laurent Lavoisier folds his arms, gaze steady, as if listening for the powder's secret heartbeat. Beside him, Marianne sketches the scene by lamplight. Furnace door ajar, crimson dust bright against pale clay, the faint halo of heat quivering in the winter air. Breathe in, the metallic tang that hovers over warm bricks. Breathe out, a curl of condensation, soft as silk, fading toward ceiling beams dark with soot. Tonight, the couple will weigh flame itself. One of the question of weight. All Europe still chants the creed of phlogiston, a phantom principle said to escape upward whenever wood burns or metal rusts. But numbers whisper otherwise. For months, Antoine has recorded mass before and after each calcination. His balance true to a single grain of sand. Every time a metal gains, not loses, weight. It is as though fire adds an invisible partner. He opens a leather notebook, its spine faintly warm from his palm. Ink flows in even strokes. Mercury oxide, 9 dW 12 grains. After 10 hours gentle heat, weight equal, yet a silvery mirror appears on vessel walls. The mirror is liquid mercury, reborn from the red powder. Something else, heavier than air, has also been freed. It trickles upward, filling the bell jar above like an unseen tide. To a breath unlike any other. 2 years later, in October 1774, Oxford clergyman Joseph Priestley presents a vial of dephlogisticated air to the French savant. Marianne turns the vial in her gloved fingers, sunlight scattering through the clear glass. The liquid-like gas within seems to sharpen every reflection. That evening they invert a candle beneath the bell. The flame, instead of guttering, climbs taller, whiter, as though tasting its own first spring breeze. Antoine notes the change in tone. The wick whispers, hiss hiss, a sound crisp as parchment torn clean. He moves a white mouse into the jar. Its tiny heart flickers, nose twitching. Inside ordinary air the creature lasts minutes. Inside Priestley's gift, it scampers for an hour, bright-eyed, untroubled. The couple exchange a glance, wonder tempered with responsibility, then lift the bell and set the mouse free into straw and seed. Antoine writes one word in the margin: respiration. At an equal sign. Then, in careful italics, combustion. 3. A naming the invisible. Winter 1777. Snow muffles the arsenal courtyard, yet beneath snow-quiet eaves the laboratory hums like a hive. Retorts sigh. A fountain of mercury oscillates in a barometer. A quill taps glass in thought. Marianne grinds Greek roots on a slip of paper. Oxys sharp acid. Genes forming, giving birth. Oxygen, Antoine murmurs, letting the syllables linger on his tongue the way a painter tests pigment on ivory palette. The acid former. The etymology will prove half wrong, yet the name will endure like marble. Across another page he coins hydrogen, the water maker, after igniting Cavendish's light gas and watching droplets blossom on the vessel walls. Words like weights must balance truth. Each new term is a counterpoise against centuries of comfortable error. For the demonstration by candlelight. Imagine yourself seated at a mahogany table in the salon of Madame du Châtelet. Silk dresses rustle. Snuff boxes click. A chandelier scatters prismatic moons on porcelain teacups. At the room's center stands a crystal bell jar poised over mercury. Antoine, calm as midnight glass, shows society ladies how red oxide of mercury yields oxygen under heat, then recombines with liquid metal when the gas is absorbed. He lifts the jar. A candle glows twice as bright. Embroidered hands rise to cover startled smiles. The audience inhales, deep, unconscious, mimicking the candle that drinks the very same element. He does not scold their allegiance to phlogiston. Instead, he invites them to feel the weight of air by lowering brass riders onto the balance until both pans rest breath still. Silence drapes the room thicker than velvet. Only the balance beam moves, rocking once, then settling into perfect equilibrium like a lullaby's last note. 5. A Marianne's quiet revolution. Back in the arsenal, the couple translate results into images for the Académie des Sciences. Copper plates glimmer under candlelight as Marianne guides a burin along wax-black ground. Each stroke preserves the curve of retort necks, the shimmer of quicksilver, the tilt of balance arms. Prints dry on linen racks, scent of lamp-black mixing with fresh ink, the aroma of ideas made visible. She annotates margins in English, Italian, French, Latin, bridges for every curious mind. Years hence, Faraday will still marvel at these engravings, tracing them with ink-stained fingertips. But tonight the sheets hang like silver moth wings, motionless in warm laboratory air, waiting for dawn. 6. A numbers at rest. Past midnight, logs close. Antoine pours a thimble of ruby wine, watching meniscus cling to glass. Marianne dips quill once more, scripting. Phlogiston theory cannot survive the scale. They blow out lamps one by one until only furnace embers breathe vermilion. Listen. Tick. The pocket watch, its crystal frosting with faint condensation. Click. The shutter as Marianne cages the mouse now sleeping in straw. Hush. The soft, collective sigh of bell jars cooling on oak. Stand here a moment longer. Feel the room adjust to darkness, like lungs adjusting to pure, gentle air. Nothing stirs but your pulse and the cooling crucible, each beat affirming the law these two have nearly distilled. Matter is never lost, only rearranged into quieter shapes. 7. A breath for you. Close your eyes. Picture the mouse's tiny chest rising, slow, even, inside a universe newly named. Let your own lungs follow that rhythm. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Sense the drift of oxygen through candle-lit rafters, through long winter corridors, across centuries, into the night where you rest. Every gram you breathe was once locked in stone, or whispering from a leaf, or glinting in a scarlet powder on Lavoisier's dish. Nothing is lost. You belong to the same calm ledger of elements, perfectly balanced, eternally transformed. Allow that thought to cradle you, light as a snowflake, steady as brass. Let eyelids lower like mercury settling into glass. Somewhere beyond the arsenal walls, Notre Dame's bell prepares a single stroke, Inside, charcoal dwindles to pearl gray ash. Breathe in clarity. Breathe out repose. The furnace dims. Logbooks rest. Science for tonight sleeps. Yet the air itself keeps vigil, carrying your dreams on wings newly christened oxygen. Drift with it, gentle traveler. When you return, Block 4 will open the first modern textbook, its pages turning like midnight leaves in spring. Pages that ignite. The birth of modern chemistry. The Arsenal lab still sleeps, embers winking like tired rubies, but another room has begun to breathe. A study paneled in walnut, shelves bowing beneath calfskin tomes. Candles gutter in tall urn-shaped holders, their flames tilting with every sigh of the winter wind. Here Antoine-Laurent and Lavoisier have carried their notebooks, trading retorts for reams of paper, turning experiments into sentences the way vintners turn grapes into wine. Listen. Pages rustle, soft as moth wings. Steel nibs murmur across laid linen paper, scratching trios of sounds. Idea, ink, intention. One of the ledger becomes a language. For 10 years the couple has filled ledgers with figures. Masses to the nearest grain, volumes to the neatest drop. But numbers alone cannot topple centuries of alchemy. They need nouns and verbs sharp enough to sever old beliefs. So Lavoisier gathers fellow iconoclasts. Morveau, Bert Hollett, Fourcroy. The four sit at an oval table whose would still scents of sap. On its surface lie bright bowls of carmine sealing wax and a blank map of language. They push Latin synonyms like chess pieces, debate Greek roots under the patient stare of a ticking cartel clock. Let us name by composition, Antoine proposes. Not by whim. The others nod. Thus oxide, sulfate, carbonate turn from cryptic riddles into plain speech, each a glass jar with a clear label. Phlogiston is banished not only by scales but by syllables. A theory without words is a castle without walls. Outside, Paris carriage wheels hiss over wet cobblestones. Inside, the first modern chemical alphabet takes shape. When the red wax cools, the manuscript bears a title as spare as flint. Methode de nomenclature chimique. 1787. Ink settles. A new era hardens like molten glass meeting water. To a calorimeter in the snow. Step into the courtyard 2 winters earlier, 1783. Snowflakes swirl under smoky lamplight while Lavoisier and mathematician Pierre-Simon Laplace bend over a copper cylinder packed with ice. It is their calorimeter, a gleaming urn whose meltwater counts invisible heat. They burn charcoal beneath a hood. Ice drips into a graduated jar. Laplace notes thermal equivalents in tight, analytic script. Every droplet is a second voice confirming conservation. The heat that leaves carbon and oxygen to form gas must enter ice to make water. Matter, energy, balance. 3 staves of the same nocturne. Marianne records the scene in graphite, shading breath that plumes from each man's mouth. Behind them, gunpowder barrels sit in orderly pyramids. Antoine's work for the Royal Commission has tripled France's supply by perfecting nitrate proportions. War may rage beyond city walls, yet here heat and ice argue their own small philosophy. Precision is peace caught in numbers. 3 are the balloon, the mouse, and a measure of the world. Summer 1783 again, but this time you stand on the Champs de Mars. A silk sphere the color of buttercup petals trembles against hemp ropes. The Montgolfier balloon. Lavoisier watches, notebook ready as it rises. He times ascent, pressure, density, drafting a table that will let future chemists calculate the very breath of heaven. He thinks of the mouse that once ran beneath a bell jar of oxygen. He thinks of oxygen joining hydrogen to turn fire into gentle rain within glass. Air is no longer a single spirit but a parliament of gases, each with rights and roles. By describing them, he has given the sky citizenship. For a trait élémentaire de chimie. A book like Sunrise. Autumn 1789. Revolution crackles in Paris streets. But high in the study, a quieter revolution prints its first leaf. Trait élémentaire de chimie. Marianne's engravings shine. Retorts, balances, furnaces rendered in copperplate lines so clear a novice could rebuild the lab from scratch. Open the tome. Feel the crisp snap of chain-lined paper. On page 1 Lavoisier writes, "Nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed." Turn pages slowly. Each chapter unfolds like dawn. Elements defined, combustion re-explained, the metric system proposed, quantitative methods detailed as recipes. Scholars will call it the first modern chemistry textbook. But tonight it is simply a lullaby for reason, sung in the universal meter of mass. Rain taps leaded panes while presses downtown thump ink onto more sheets, their rhythm syncing with your pulse. Steady, deliberate, inevitable. 5 weights and measures of a new republic. 1790. The Assemblée Nationale commissions a reform of weights and measures. Who better than the man who has weighed air itself? Antoine joins D'Alembert and McCain to draft the metric dream. A meter drawn from Earth's meridian, a kilogram defined by water's weight. Candles burn past midnight over parchment maps. Compasses scratch arcs. The globe becomes a laboratory. Imagine their hushed excitement. To tame commerce, almanacs, recipes, even children's heights with one coherent scale. A farmer in Provence, a merchant in Bordeaux, a scientist in future centuries. Each will speak the same numeric tongue. Balance will no longer be metaphor. It will be law inked into everyday life. In the corner of the study stands a prototype platinum kilogram. Its surface glints like moonlit river water. Yet to lift it feels oddly familiar, as though you cradle a scoop of night air made dense by knowledge. 6 quiet intervals. Beyond the study, Paris tilts toward turmoil, but here time slows. Quills rest. The last candle gutters. Rain hushes to mist. Marianne closes the folio. Sliding ribbons of blue silk between sections yet to be polished. Antoine places a gold watch atop the stack. It's ticking a reminder that even revolutions obey seconds. Inhale. The faint aroma of wet wool cloaks left by the door. Exhale. The distant echo of bronze bells tolling curfew across the Seine. They share a glance. Soft, weary, resolute. The world outside debates liberty. The world inside these pages already breathes it. Letter by letter, gram by gram. 7 a bookmark for dreams. Now rest your palm atop the closed trait. Feel its quiet warmth. Ink still drying, ideas still glowing. Let thoughts settle like fine ash after a candle's sigh. Picture the metric line stretching from pole to equator, the balloon tilting above clouds, the calorimeter melting ice with invisible fire. Each is a proof that the universe, once named, becomes a friend. Predictable, generous, awaiting questions. Close your eyes. Count 4 heartbeats in, hold 4, release 6. With every cycle, imagine numbers floating on dark water, aligning into neat columns under starlight. Nothing is lost. Not data scribbled in midnight margins, nor breaths you release into the room, nor the hush that follows a turning page. All transform, all return, balanced as a platinum kilogram resting on velvet. When you wake, Block 5 will open a different ledger, one of tumults, trials, and the final experiment time performs on every life. But for now, sleep between printed leaves, warmed by the slow ember of reason. Let rain resume its lullaby on the glass. Let the fire sigh low. Let knowledge stand guard till dawn. The scales tip. Revolution, trial and transformation. Paris, winter 1793. Snow no longer hushes the city. Instead, it sharpens every sound. Carts groan, boots slap, tricolor cockades rustle like restless sparrows. The revolution has melted gilded crests and poured their gold into cannon mouths. And somewhere, behind shuttered windows, Antoine-Laurent Lavoisier records one final column of figures before the ink turns dangerous. One balances on the barricades. The Ferme Générale, once his fountain of crucible coins, is outlawed, condemned as the vampire of the people. Ledgers that once sang profits now clang like chains. Antoine redirects their last francs to purchase instruments for the École de Santé. Microscopes, retorts, balances. Gifts for a future he hopes will outlive the storm. Yet the Committee of Public Safety does not weigh motives, only names. And the name Lavoisier is etched beside 27 other tax farmers on a list thick as gallows rope. 2 April 24, 1794. The door splinters. Stale straw, iron keys, boots echo on stone. The chemist straightens cravat more from habit than hope. Marie-Anne's fingertips linger at his sleeve cuff. Graphite smudge against white linen, a lover's watermark. Silence says what words cannot. Hold your equilibrium. He is marched through streets where citizens once gasped at balloon ascents. Now they study the prisoners with the same uneasy wonder. Past shuttered bookshops where the trait still lies stacked, unread, waiting for gentler mornings. 3 in the cell experiments continue. The conciergerie cell is 7 paces long, 4 paces wide. Its walls smell of damp lime and forgotten prayers. Antoine requests paper, charcoal, a small watch glass. A guard shrugs. This prisoner of science seems harmless enough. That night, beneath a moon slivered like a broken balance beam. He times his pulse at rest, then after pacing, then after holding breath 20 seconds. Columns form even here. Carotid beats per minute, volume of air inhaled, perceived warmth of skin. He means to finish Priestley's question on animal heat, to show that respiration is slow combustion. Outside, other prisoners gossip, sob, mutter prayers. He measures heartbeats. Knowledge is the only contraband no jailer can confiscate. For the trial, 8 hours to weigh a life. May 8, 1794. Revolutionary Tribunal. The courtrooms plaster angels now wear red caps painted over gilt halos. Prosecutor Fouquier Tinville recites accusations. Member of the traitorous Ferme Générale. Supplier of adulterated tobacco. Conspirator against the Republic by chemical dealings. Antoine rises. His voice is steady, the voice that once named oxygen. He explains purity essays, improvements in agriculture, free public lectures at the Louvre Amphitheatre. He asks not for mercy, but for time. A fortnight, citizens, that I may complete experiments begun for the benefit of France. Judge Coffenhal hammers the bench. The Republic has no need of savants. Sentence pronounced. Ink drying faster than tears. Total duration. 8 hours. 1/3 the time he once devoted to calibrating a single balance. 5 of the walk to the scaffold. Late afternoon. Clouds bruise violet over the Place de la Révolution. Prisoners ride open carts. Drummers set a heartbeat for the crowd. Antoine stands erect, suit brushed, mind already parsing the rhythm. 72 strokes per minute, allegro of mortality. He passes the deserted Academy of Sciences, shutters nailed shut by decree. Memories flicker. Applause after calorimeter lecture, echo of Morveau's laugh, scent of lampblack on Marie-Anne's engravings. At the foot of the guillotine he notices the lunette's hinges. Oak pivots greased with tallow. For a heartbeat he imagines plotting friction coefficients, but the guards push him forward. Blade flashes. A single, definitive transformation. Organized flesh to stillness. Whispered breath to wind. The crowd murmurs, already turning to vendors of roasted chestnuts. In a wicker basket the chemist's face retains its calm, eyes half closed as though studying another experiment's result. 6 afterimage. Marie-Anne's vigil. A small garret lit by one candle. Marie-Anne unfurls laboratory sketches, spreads them like maps of a vanished country. Tears blot but do not blur the copperplate lines. The engraving acid has bitten them too deep. She vows to publish every memoir, every data table, every marginal note from prison. Revolution cannot annul conservation. Ink once dried does not bleed backward. 4 years later, presses clatter again. Memoirs de Chimie bearing both their names. Students across Europe traced the diagrams, unaware they were etched in grief. 7 A balance restored. Spring 1796. Cherry trees bloom where the scaffold once stood. A young chemist, Gay-Lussac, copies Lavoisier's water decomposition experiment. Another, Dalton, sketches atoms as weighted spheres. The metric system spreads from school children's slates to lighthouse engineering plans. Ideas, like elements, cannot be guillotined. They sublimate, redescend as morning frost on new minds. Stand now in a quiet room, perhaps your own. Listen. Rain against night glass, pulse in your wrist, the hush between breaths. These are experiments Lavoisier began for you. Each inhalation proves his theorem that life is measured combustion. A breath for equanimity. Close your eyes. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Feel oxygen, once unnamed, sweep into alveoli, surrender heat, depart as quieter carbon dioxide. Cradle the principle of conservation inside your ribs. Nothing you are vanishes. It only rearranges into softer shapes. Yawn, sigh, dream. Picture a silver balance settling to rest. Pans level under starlight. One pan holds the clamor of revolution. The other, a single quill still warm from parchment. Equilibrium achieved. Let lids grow heavy. Blade glints fade. County records close. Presses still and bells hush. What remains is the law he gifted the world. Order beneath turmoil, pattern inside chaos. Breathe in steadiness. Breathe out release. Sleep, gentle listener, on the assurance that even in the darkest chapters, reason leaves an afterglow, an invisible ember drifting forward to light tomorrow's experiments. When you wake, Block 6 will guide you beyond the scaffold's shadow, into gardens where chemistry heals and feeds, where balances tilt toward life. Seeds of renewal. Chemistry cultivates life. Night has folded away the scaffold's shadow. In its place a spring garden spreads, rows of dark loam, dew trembling on pea-shoot tendrils, copper labels glinting with elemental symbols. The century has turned. Revolution's cannons rust beneath poppies, and Antoine-Laurent Lavoisier's balances, once sealed in dusty cabinets, awaken in greenhouses and breweries, hospitals and bakeries. Hear the weight of a seed, the volume of breath, the tinge of a bruise. All speak the grammar he inscribed. Nothing lost, everything transformed. Listen. Robins measure sunrise in 3-note motifs. Distant bells in the village square add their own metallic tick. Nature and man keeping laboratory time together. One a soil and scribbles. Justus von Liebig's lesson. Heidelberg 1840. Professor Justus von Liebig stands before farmhands and princes alike, chalk dusting his sleeves. On a slate he writes the new trinity of nourishment, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, then underlines them twice, as though planting stakes for climbing beans. He scatters bones into porcelain, cooks them in acid, weighs the ash. The numbers bloom into fertilizers that coax famine from Europe's door. In his diary he thanks Monsieur Lavoisier, who first weighed a leaf against the air. Indeed, every sack of superphosphate poured into a furrow is a conversation across decades. Balance pans answering one another with rust-red weights and fresh white roots. 2 of vitalism wilts, Wohler's urea. A year later, laboratory lamps glow late in Göttingen. Friedrich Wohler heats an inorganic cyanate with ammonium chloride. Crystals form, ordinary urea, once thought to require the spark of life. Vitalism, that last cousin of alchemy, wilts like an untended rose. In its stead stands an idea first hinted in Antoine and Marianne's notebooks. Organisms are reactors exquisitely tuned, not mysteries exempt from law. Rain taps glass panes. Inside, Wohler weighs each crystal, each droplet condensed on his retort's neck. Equal masses in, equal masses out. The ledger still balances, whether tracking prison heartbeats or the sweat of a horse. 3. Fermentation's invisible allies. Pasteur listens to yeast. Strasbourg, 1857. Cellars smell of barley mash and oak casks. But Professor Louis Pasteur does not drink. He listens. Under his microscope, globes of yeast bud and spin, exhaling carbonic breath in tiny jubilant storms. He recalls Lavoisier's observation that respiration married combustion. Now he adds a footnote. Some flames are too small to see, yet they leaven bread and spoil wine. He tilts slim glass necks, lets only pure air caress beef broth, and the liquid stays clear. Spores locked out, order maintained. From this simple flourish sprout vaccines, antiseptics, a cascade of lives extended beyond childhood fevers. All because a balance once showed that air itself has parts to cherish or refuse. For a nourishing nations. The harvest of nitrates. Chile's Atacama Desert, 1880s. Wheelbarrows rattle under nitrate sun. Europe's fields depend on this pale salt shipped in burlap bales. Yet minds exhaust as fast as empires bargain. Chemists gather at conferences, anxious, flipping through Liebig's worn pages, repeating a single urgent sum. People per hectare nitrogen in soil. In notebooks they sketch a dream. Pull nitrates straight from the sky, the same sky Lavoisier dissected into fractions a century before. But indexes of heat and pressure mock their glassware, until 2 German names meet the challenge. 5. The air becomes bread, Haber and Bosch. 1909 Karlsruhe. Fritz Haber kneels beside a steel tube glowing electric blue, gauges trembling at 200 atmospheres. A hiss, a scent like thunderstorm air. Droplets of liquid ammonia collect in a trap. He weighs them, mass accounted, nitrogen captured. Keep everything constant. Change only opportunity. 6 years later Karl Bosch scales the reaction to towers of alloyed steel, each bolt torqued like a cathedral bell. Ammonia flows by the ton, morphs into ammonium sulfate, then into green continents of wheat. Half the children of the 21st century will draw first breath because sky was wedded to soil in those pressure-forged crucibles. Stand in today's dawn garden. Feel a loaf's crumb between fingers. Smell toast rising with steam. That aroma is a ghost of the guillotine's condemned breaths. Nitrogen given reprieve, reborn as grain. 6. Quiet intervals. Balances in the wards. Spring 1936. Florence Nightingale's distant successors wheel slender cylinders into hospital rooms. Oxygen, once a curiosity that brightened mice, streams through rubber tubing to the drowned lungs of influenza. Flow meters click gently, like knitting needles counting stitches of survival. On bedside tables lie clipboards. Dosage by kilogram, drip rate by milliliter, temperature by tenth of a degree. Metric children of the meter stick Lavoisier helped midwife. Outside, cherry petals swirl like pink snow. Inside, breath steadies, conservation honored within fragile rib cages. 7. A breath for renewal. Return to the present. Dew has evaporated. Tomato vines bask, their leaves angled like little solar arrays catalyzing sweetness. In your palm rests a seed. Sunflower perhaps. Black shell stripy as an old-style ruler. Weigh it mentally, a fraction of a gram. Now imagine its future mass of stalk, disc, seeds, birdsong. All that becoming already exists in careful proportion, waiting for water, photons, and the chemistry of time. Close your eyes. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Feel nitrogen coaxed from air by Haber's pressure. Now hitching a ride in hemoglobin. Feel phosphorus from ancient bones glimmer in each heartbeat's ATP spark. You are a walking ledger. Credits and debits balancing in silence, every second. Picture Lavoisier's brass balance in a museum case. Instead of dusty weights, CPs, vaccines, loaves, steel, textbooks, the lungs of newborns. The pans tip, settle, tip again. Never resting, always proving that life is arithmetic performed in chloroplast and mitochondrion, brewery vat and ICU ward. Let your shoulders soften. Listen to the garden. A trowel cuts soil, chouquet. A bee drones in clover, A child somewhere laughs in the key of middle C. All elements rearranged, none destroyed. Breathe in renewal. Breathe out gratitude. Drift now beneath a trellis of wisteria. Allow its shadows to stipple closed eyelids. Tomorrow, Block 7 will open the gate from garden to cosmos, revealing how Lavoisier's law steers comets, climate, and the breath of future planets. But tonight, sleep in this orchard of quiet balances, where chemistry hums like a lullaby among leaves and stars. Cosmic balances. From breath to starlight, the orchard dozes under constellations. A telescope pivots on brass gears, following the sleepy turn of Earth. Here, where petals once trembled with dew, photons older than humanity now fall, each ray stamped with an elemental signature. The balance that weighed seeds and lungs stretches its arms across the heavens. It will weigh stars, climates, comets, and the breath of worlds yet unnamed. Listen. Wind slides through cedar boughs like pages turning in a celestial ledger. Somewhere a tide clock tolls, recounting lunar arithmetic. One is spectral scripts. Fraunhofer to Paine. 1814. Joseph von Fraunhofer grinds glass until it sings, then threads sunlight through a narrow slit. Dark bars stripe the colors, absences that speak of presence. Hydrogen, sodium, calcium, their fingerprints tattoo the white blaze. And in each ink-black line Lavoisier's law nods. Matter neither lost nor created, only scattered from furnace core to optic nerve. A century later Cecilia Payne deciphers the code. Those spectral ghosts tell that stars are seas of hydrogen, not mirrors of earthly stone. H and he, two dancers light enough to float in cosmic alembics, outweigh carbon, iron, gold. A universe once guessed to be diverse now balances on a single fleeting element, fusing, shining, transmuting. Close your eyes. Picture furnaces 1,000,000 kilometers wide, forging oxygen for future orchards, nitrogen for future lungs, all accounted for in the margin notes of starlight. To a carbon's ledger in the sky. 1862. William Huggins trains his spectroscope on cometary tails. Cyanogen glows turquoise, announcing carbon on the wing. Every winter fire, every budding oak, every breath you exhale shares ancestry with these icy nomads. Nothing is lost, only frozen, hurled, thawed, inhaled anew. Fast forward to 1958. On Mauna Loa, Charles David Keeling sets flasks in tradewind breezes, weighing invisible CO2 with infrared balances. His graph climbs month by month, a sawtooth heartbeat of seasons that slowly tilts upward, whispering warning. Earth itself becomes an experiment vessel. Input fossil carbon, observe atmosphere, note temperature. 3 planetary proofs, Venus, Mars and home. Mariner 2 flies past Venus in 1962. Instruments crackling through vacuum. Surface temperature. Hot enough to melt lead. Spectra shout CO2, sulfuric acid clouds. Balance tips, greenhouse sealed. A cautionary footnote in Lavoisier's posthumous textbook. Mariner 4 photographs Mars. Thin air, rusted iron dust. Water long fled to polar crypts. Another margin note. When balance slips the other way, warmth drains, rivers fossilize. Now return to Earth, still blue, still breathing. A global scale groans with 7 billion lives. Petrofires, forests felled. Climatologists, heirs of Antoine's precise heart, audit gigatons like accountants of destiny. Ice cores speak, coral rings testify, satellites tally outgoing infrared. The ledger is honest. Whether society will be is a question left blank, awaiting signatures. For a guardians of equilibrium, chemistry as climate steward. Picture sunlit fields of switchgrass sipping CO2. Fermenters bubbling bioethanol, direct air capture fans humming like distant hives. Engineers swap coal for photovoltaic silicon. Catalytic converters teach exhaust to behave. Each invention is a small brass rider nudged onto the planetary scale, coaxing the beam toward balance. Even a quiet act, planting a sapling, mending a shirt, taking a slower train, tips a gram or two. Remember Lavoisier's maxim: exactitude leads to justice. In climate as in taxation, accuracy is mercy for the future. 5 launch pads and lifelines. Rocket fuels, station air. October 4, 1957. Sputnik arcs across dusk. Its radio pulse clicks in your headphones like a distant Geiger counter. Rockets burn liquid oxygen and kerosene. Controlled combustion derived from the same equations that once brightened a mouse jar candle. Inside the International Space Station, pumps hiss. CO2 scrubbers digest exhalations. Electrolyzers split recycled water, returning O2 to the cabin loop. Astronauts float in a closed, humming homage to conservation of mass. Every sigh is weighed, purified, returned. Lavoisier's laboratory has simply traded oak benches for microgravity modules, ink pens for telemetry. 6 exoplanet forests and future breaths. 1995. 51 Pegasi B wobbles its star. Since then, thousands of exoplanet spectra unfurl like luminous passports. Sodium on a superjupiter, water vapor on a mini-Neptune, possible methane on a temperate super-Earth. Soon, telescopes will parse oxygen lines in alien skies, perhaps photosynthesis breathing on another shore. Imagine first contact not with beings but with their byproducts. A subtle excess of O2, an improbable mix of gases balanced beyond geologic chance. A signature of life, written in the ink Antoine first distilled from mercury calx. 7 quiet intervals. Tidal breath, stellar heartbeat. Listen now. Ocean tides draw in 2 seconds. Draw out 2 seconds. Rhythm set by the moon's measured mass, itself carved from Earth's mantle long ago. Above, Betelgeuse brightens and dims over 400 days, exhaling shells of dust that will one day seed planets. Galaxies collide, yet total baryonic count stays constant. Cosmic books always reconcile at fiscal year-end. A breath for the stars. Close your eyes. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Sense oxygen atoms forged in an ancient supernova slipping into hemoglobin. Feel carbon, once the spine of a comet, wander in your bloodstream toward a brain synapse firing gentle awe. Repeat silently. I am matter on loan. Return it gracefully. Picture Lavoisier's brass balance floating in orbit, pans filled not with lead weights but with paired images. Left pan, Earth at night, a spiderweb of city lights. Right pan, a newborn star cluster, nursery of future homes. The beam tilts, steadies, tilts again, inviting you to live as the tiniest rider, mindful of where you step, what you burn, how you breathe. Let shoulders soften, jaw unlace. The telescope dome closes with a sigh. Robins hush. Surf subsides to a sleepy shush. Breathe in wonder. Breathe out belonging. Drift now along the Milky Way's faint river, buoyed by ratios that never lie. When you wake, Block 8 will guide the balance inward, into quantum lattices and neural synapses, showing how chemistry shapes thought, memory, and the dreams now gathering behind your eyes. Until then, rest among the constellations of conservation. Inner alchemy. Quantum threads and synaptic sparks. Stars dim beyond eyelids. Now the journey tilts inward, from light years to nanometers, from planetary climate to the hush between 2 heartbeats. Remove the telescope. Lift instead a quartz prism of thought. Peer through. Neuron forests, ion rivers, quantum currents twining like silver roots beneath consciousness. The same conservation that governed cannons and comets whispers here, counting every electron whispered across a synapse. Listen. Blood surges in carotid corridors. Sodium gates clatter open then shut. Tiny portcullises guarding electric kingdoms. One of probability gardens. Where electrons dream. 1926. Erwin Schrödinger sketches wave equations that lace space with ripples of maybe. Each orbital is a probability garden. Petals of S, P, D, F blooming around a nucleus, never quite here nor there until measured. Heisenberg adds a gate sign. Delta X, delta P greater /2. Uncertainty sprouting like dandelions in ordered rows. Now plunge beneath your fingernail. Carbon's 4 electron blooms orient toward corners of a tetrahedron, drinking in hydrogen to knit keratin. Calcium hides in bone lattices. Ionic stalactites sustained by quantum consent. At this scale, Lavoisier's balance steadies not stone weights but amplitudes. Mass is still tallied, though position and momentum blur like lantern light in fog. To a molecular binding. Quiet flamenco of vibration. Within each bond, nuclei tango. Infrared photons mark their steps. Stretch, bend, rock, wag. Vibrations feed the thermal murmur you call warmth. ATP, that trifoliate coin of cellular currency, snaps its terminal phosphate. The release flares at -30 kJ mole superscript 1. A whisper compared with gunpowder, yet enough to blink an eyelid or write this word. Proteins fold along hydrophobic shy corners, charged handshakes. Sulfur bridges locking like lovers' pinkies. Misfold but a fraction and prion bloom, reminding that even inside, equilibrium judges sharply. 3 synaptic currencies. Neurotransmitters in transit. Zoom to the synaptic cleft. 20 nanometers of possibility. Action potentials dive down axons, 120 m superscript 1. Fast as a peregrine stoop scaled to cell size. Voltage-gated calcium channels blossom. Vesicles fuse, spilling molecular emissaries. Glutamate. Bright trumpet shouting yes. A GABA. Velvet glove murmuring hush. Dopamine. Gold coin of anticipation chiming reward. A serotonin. Copper compass of mood, tilting toward calm or storm. Receptors quiver, ions flood. Postsynaptic potential sum in silent arithmetic. Enough EPSPs tip the hill, and a neuron fires. One digital click in a web of 86 billion. For a memory's alloy. Calcium, kinases, chromatin. Hold a childhood scent, fresh-cut grass, and watch chemistry forge recollection. Glutamate sparks NMDA receptors. Calcium pours inward like moonlight. Calmodulin hugs the ions, wakes him kinase 2. Phosphate tags flutter onto AMPA channels, making them linger at the membrane. Hours later, Suribi climbs DNA helices, summoning new proteins. Synapse scaffolds thicken, axons sprout boutons. Memory is nothing mystical, just a ledger where atoms sign long-term leases on dendritic spines. 5 dream distillations. Melatonin and REM potions. Night, pineal gland drips melatonin. Indole lantern dimming cortical chatter. GABA and glycin loosen muscle reins. Acetylcholine fans thalamic flames, painting REM dramas across closed lids. During these reels, the hippocampus replays days footage, editing, compressing, archiving to neocortex, chemistry snipping film and gluing frames. Lavoisier's law tucks you in. Oxygen in, so out, heat bled to sheets. Even dreams settle their balances. 6 quiet intervals. Quantum tunneling in enzymes. Some enzymes cheat barriers. Protons tunnel beneath, teleporting through classically forbidden walls. Alcohol dehydrogenase rescues hydrogens with this sleight of hand. Photosystem 2 splits water under sunlight's whip crack, electrons vaulting chlorophyll bridges. Such tunneling is not magic but mass energy bookkeeping. Borrow a quantum coin, repay it in Planck time installments. 7 a breath for inner equilibrium. Place a hand over sternum. Feel the metronome thud. Lube dub, pushed by ATP-hungry myosin rails sliding actin ropes. Close eyes. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. Imagine every oxygen atom from Block 7's supernova now perched in hemoglobin seats, commuting to mitochondrial furnaces. Picture each CO2 passenger stepping off into alveolar chambers, cued for exhale back to global climate ledgers. Whisper to yourself, I am reaction and record. Neurons spark because sodium left, potassium entered. Feelings rise because catechol rings docked at receptors. All blooms because nitric oxide slipped across membranes, dilating microvasculature in the visual cortex. All of it conserved, exchanged, balanced. A dream forward, toward Block 9. Let the MRI hum fade. Let the cave pool drip into silence. Dopamine levels settle. Cortisol rhythms ebb. Glymphatic tides rinse metabolic debris from cortical streets. You drift, a soft-wired network of quantum legal transactions. Ledger closed until dawn. Breathe in cognition. Breathe out serenity. When morning blushes the window pane, Block 9 will invite chemistry to craft tomorrow. Bioplastics woven from sugar storms, quantum dots healing retinas, zero-carbon fuels singing in metallic lungs. But for now, trust the nocturnal accountants in every cell to keep the books. Sleep within this cathedral of ions and orbitals, where the faint glow of synapses mimics galaxies, and the balance holds, perfect as ever, beneath your resting heart. Tomorrow's crucibles. Crafting matter, healing earth. Dawn flickers across solar glass. Dew beads webbed between carbon-negative bamboo stalks. Laboratory walls are transparent now, grown from algae-based polymers that taste light and exhale oxygen. Inside, benches hum with silent servos, pipettes move like ghostly oars, and a single digital balance wakes. Still true to the gram, still keeping Antoine-Laurent Lavoisier's oath. Nothing lost, everything transformed. Listen. Offshore, blades carve the sky in measured arcs, 1,000 to 1,000, each turn pumping electrons through cables the size of oak trunks toward cities still yawning in first light. 1S sugars into silk, the age of bioplastics. 2025. A vat the color of pale tea ripples with engineered E. coli. Fed cornstalk hydrolysate, the microbes knit polyhydroxyalkanotes, granules that dry into pellets, then extrude into phone cases, shoe soles, sutures. Drop one in compost. Fungi nibble the chains, returning carbon to soil within weeks. Technicians ink barcodes on each batch, tracking atoms the way vintners once traced grapes. Ledger lines wink on cloud servers. C equals 100T sequestered. N equals 5T fixed. Energy input offset by 0.7 GWh wind. Elsewhere, shoppers stroke packaging smooth as silk, oblivious to the fermentation lullaby behind every curve. 2 quantum dots, pixels that heal. Hospital ward, 2033. An ophthalmologist lifts a syringe hardly wider than a cattail stem. Inside, perovskite quantum dots swim in saline like fireflies. Injected beneath a damaged retina, they nestle among photoreceptors, harvesting photons with tunable band gaps. Minutes later, the patient sees the red of her daughter's coat for the first time since childhood. Down the hall, nurses monitor biodegradable screens that glow without backlights, each pixel a regimented lattice 8 nanometers across. No cadmium, no lead. Only copper, indium, sulfur, their e-waste fates already plotted. Disassembly, chelation, rebirth. 3 electrolysis at scale, the green hydrogen lullaby. Desert noon, 2038. Sunlight crushes parabolic mirrors. Molten salt ticks toward 600 degrees Celsius. A solid oxide electrolysis stack sips concentrated solar heat, splitting steam, edge, into hydrogen that cools, liquefies, flows into cryogenic trains. At coastal hubs, the gas meets captured CO2 in catalytic dancer's grip, birthing e-methanol for container ships that once burned bunker fuel. Tankers glide over gray waves, their wakes a whisper of water and trace oxygen. No sulfur haze, no soot to settle on Arctic ice. Atmospheric balances nod. Gigatons trimmed, radiative forcing eased by fractions that matter. For a molecular machines. Gears at the scale of dreams. University Cleanroom 2042. An atomic force microscope taps staccato over a silicon terrace. Below, a ring of carbon atoms spins 180 degrees when zapped with violet photons. One cog in a molecular gearbox destined for cancer drug delivery. Load the rotor with doxorubicin. Graft antibody petals to its crown. In blood, pH gates pop at tumor sites. Gears were. Drugs deploy with GPS precision no scalpel can rival. Side effects plummet. Ledger shows lives extended. Grams of active pharmaceutical discarded reduced to near zero. 5 circular cities. Nothing becomes waste. Metro Loop 2050. Elevators ride magnetic rails. Floors harvest footfall vibrations into micro-kilowatt trickles. Organic refuse flies through pneumatic chutes to basement bioreactors. Enzymes digest cellulose. Faucet out volatile fatty acids for district biorefineries. Even concrete re-enters the kiln. Old slabs crushed, paired with captured CO2, cured into carbon-negative blocks that lock 7 kilograms of gas per brick. City planners cite Lavoisier on subway art panels. L'Amateur conserve. Children trace the phrase, asking guardians. So, cities don't throw anything away? Exactly, the answer smiles. 6 quiet intervals, computing with light and carbon. Midnight in a data orchard. Racks shaped like honeycomb hum under a dim aurora of photonic interconnects. Graphene transistors flip logic in femtoseconds. Scarcely warming. Exhaust heat, what little there is. Feeds algae tubes that scrub server hall air, exhaling O2 back into climate-controlled aisles. Billing software logs joules saved. Water recycled. Carbon sunk in polymeric laminates. Ledgers still balance. Only the units evolved from ounces of coal to photons and ppb of greenhouse gas. 7 are a breath for tomorrow. Place thumb to wrist. Feel pulse. Steady litany of sodium-potassium swaps. ATP spent. Heat released. Close eyes. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Imagine wind farm electrons migrating through green hydrogen pipelines into your stove's blue flame. Picture coat fibers spun from captured CO2. Sidewalk pavers grown from bacteria that entomb limestone dust. Hear the quiet click of molecular gears mending cells you have yet to damage. Whisper, I am borrowing the future, molecule by molecule. Promise to return them cleaner, calmer, arranged in kinder patterns. Adrift into the lab of dawn. Outside, dawn deepens to full flame. Transparent lab walls tint rose gold, then clear. Robotic arms halt. Batches rest. Balances zero themselves for next cycles. Somewhere a 3D printer finishes weaving a coral scaffold from biocalcite, ready for reef-side deployment. Marine biologists will slide it into turquoise water at slack tide. Polyps will find home. Parrotfish will nibble breakfast. Breathe in anticipation. Breathe out resolve. Let eyelids lower. Feel campion flowers outside release faint clove scent. Hear electrolyzer stacks lull like distant surf. Sense planetary ledger shifting toward equilibrium. When you wake, Block 10 will circle back, closing the book with reflections on balance, legacy, and the quiet courage of measurement. But tonight, rest amid humming fermenters and fluttering quantum states. Chemistry keeps watch, faithful custodian of atoms returning, renewed to their endless dance. The quiet balance. Legacy, measure, and the lull of continuity. Night has arced once more towards stillness. The transparent laboratory of Block 9 dims. Its algae glass walls soften to cobalt, monitors fade to ember, fermenters hum in half-sleep. Beyond, fields of wind turbines fold their blades like roosting cranes, while batteries settle into the hush of trickle charge. Inside, a single brass balance, polished antique, stands on a walnut pedestal lit by fire flame. Its beam rests level, pans motionless, yet every atom in the room owes its place to centuries of careful tipping. Listen. Clock hands sweep felt-lined gears, tick-tick, each second laid like another small weight upon the ledger of time. River water, restless even at midnight, sighs over stones, reminding that flow is merely balance set loose. One of the measure of a moment. Take a slow breath. Feel ribs bloom then fold. Between inhale and exhale, 300 million red cells trade Situ for O2, and exchange time to the sibilant slide of hemoglobin iron switching valence. In that single heartbeat, the principle Antoine-Laurent Lavoisier first inked beneath candlelight completes a full circle. Matter rearranged, energy released, nothing lost. He never held a smartphone, never saw the ocean from orbit, yet every kilobyte stored in carbon-thin drives, every kilowatt coaxed from green hydrogen, every grain of fertilizer flung on a hillside vineyard traces back to his insistence. Count first, then believe. To a grandchildren of exactitude. Picture classrooms lit by dawn where children pour colored water between beakers, eyes widening as menisci rise in crisp curves. They learn to read that curved surface at its lowest point, the line of truth, and somewhere a future agronomist, oncologist, or climate negotiator is born. One student will develop ultralight batteries, measuring lithiation cycles by micrograms. Another will write climate treaties, quoting Keeling data to the decimal. A third will craft lullabies inside neural nets, calibrating timbre for infants' heart rates. They may never whisper Lavoisier's name, yet his creed, La theorie est reine sans l'expérience, paces at their elbows like a gentle tutor. 3 errors, edges, and the courage to correct. Balances sometimes lie. Dust on a pan, a breeze through a cracked sash, bias in the mind that reads the needle. Science endures not because it is infallible, but because it keeps checking. After phlogiston fell, later certainties, caloric, ether, steady-state cosmology, also creaked and toppled. Each collapse sounded like failure, yet proved resilience, the willingness to discard beloved ideas at the clang of fresh data. Tonight, let that comfort you. If days list lopsided, if hypotheses of self or purpose waver, remember the craft. Zero the scale, wipe stray dust, measure again. Correction is no shame. It is the meter's gentle hand guiding you back to center. For a ledgers of the heart. Not all balances are brass and ruby bearings. Some swing unseen inside relationships, cities, ecosystems. Kindness spent ripples outward, returning as trust. Resources hoarded stagnate, breeding mold of resentment. Imagine your words as reagents, some caustic, some catalytic, some sweet as ester fumes on spring air. Choose with the same care Marianne took engraving copper plates. Each stroke deliberate, each space intentional. In conversations, pause like a chemist weighing. Listen, calibrate, respond. Soon, empathy settles the beam until both minds share level light. 5. Between Planck and Parsec. Scroll outward in scale. Down to quantum fields where virtual particles flicker, borrowing energy then repaying within 10 superscript 2 seconds. Up to galaxy clusters whose lensing arcs prove mass where light finds none. Across 30 orders of magnitude, the books stay balanced. Reality, vast as it is, still keeps receipt. And yet, within this symmetrical immensity, consciousness appears. A rare algorithm that can notice the ledger. Your wonder tonight is part of the equation. An emergent term altering no totals yet giving them meaning. Perhaps awe is the universe reviewing itself, pausing to admire tidy columns before turning the page. 6. Quiet intervals. The watch beside the hearth. Return to the room. Fire pops. A sap pocket surrendering. Clock chimes a single note, silver on velvet hush. Notice small details. A beaker of rainwater catching firelight like amber glass. A sprig of rosemary drying on a wire, oils darkening paper beneath. A paperweight carved from meteorite, its nickel flecks reminding that balances once formed inside exploding stars. All ordinary, all miraculous when counted against oblivion. 7 a breath for closure. Rest one palm over sternum. Inhale for 4. Hold for, exhale for 6. Picture the antique balance tipping ever so slightly as lungs fill. Mass entering, beam adjusting, then returning as CO2, water vapor, heat. This gentle oscillation is the lullaby of existence. Give, receive, transform. Whisper inwardly. Nothing of me is lost. Everything awaits new form. Feel shoulders ease, jaw unclench. Thoughts settle like silt after floodwater clears. 8 of the ledger closes, the story opens. Across the hearth, the brass balance now glints steady, final weights logged. You may extinguish the lamp. The numbers will keep. Outside, the river's murmuring ledger flows onward, tallied by moon-drawn tides. Inside your skull, glial accountants tidy synaptic ledgers, converting today's surge of images into tomorrow's calm recall. When dawn returns, you'll wake lighter yet intact, atoms unchanged but stories enriched. You will step into a world still imperfect, still beautiful, still demanding patient measurement and brave revision. Carry the craft, observe, quantify, balance. Hand it forward as quietly as Lavoisier once passed a flame beneath a bell jar. 9 adrift. The fire settles into red coals. Clock ticks blur into one soft drone. River hush merges with blood hum in ears. Breathe in equilibrium. Breathe out repose. Let lids fall. Let balances fade into dream fog. Trust the universal ledger to keep its silent vigil, assuring that even sleep itself is but energy exchanged, never extinguished. Good night, gentle listener. May your rest align with a quiet balance that began in a Parisian lab 2 centuries ago and now hums in wind farms, quantum chips, and the steady rhythm of your own heart. The story completes its arc, but the balance, ever patient, remains.